Hello and welcome to the NVR Podcast. I'm Rachael Aylmer.
And I'm Peter Jakob.
And today we're going to be talking about to nag or not to nag. That is the question. Oh God, how did we get to this one, Peter?
Well, we've chatted about this, haven't we? About 2 weeks ago, I was delivering some advanced level training, and one of the participants brought up a particular case, and I can't even remember what the context was, what it was about. Mm-hmm. But we did a role play. We undertook a role play, and it was an apparently small interaction. It may appear on the surface to have been trivial.
Yeah.
And it was about an 18-year-old son who, is or acts in ways that demonstrate entrenched dependency on his parents. And we looked at the interaction between him and his mother around her asking him to do chores in the house. And, for example, her asking him to empty the dishwasher. Mm-hmm. And what the boy or young man will routinely do at such a point is roll his eyes, sigh, make a face, and at times he has called his mother a nag. Mm-hmm. And I sat there. I was in the role play. I was the therapist. And I had a sense of how profoundly unfair that is. And that evening, I thought about it. I thought about it a lot. And the next day, went back, into the venue, onto the course, and proceeded with the group, to deconstruct the word, the concept, the idea of a nag. Mm. And a lot of questions came up from that. So that's where it came from.
Go on then. So what are your leading thoughts around that then, deconstructing that word, nag?
Well, one thought is it important to talk about that? Is it important in our work with the client to express that we think of that as unfair? Mm. And if it is important, why? Because it seems in NVR, we haven't yet brought a feminist analysis into our work. We haven't yet thought about, what do gender differences actually mean in work with NVR? And looking at it more closely, it seemed to have so many dimensions, so many aspects. Should I just sort of share some of those that emerged?
Yeah, come. Yeah, that'll help.
Okay, so if we just look at what the mother does, that has certain meanings. So when the mother, maybe repeatedly, asks her son to empty the dishwasher, okay? What are the meanings that can be attached to that? She wants him to grow up to become a responsible and fair person who will do his share. That is sort of attached to her values. She perhaps feels that it is time for him to become more autonomous, that it's not good for him to rely on all these services that she delivers to him. It's not good for his confidence. It's not good for this stage in life where he needs to go out into the world. It's something that may cause rejection from future partners if he were to go out into the world. She may feel that she has worked very hard because she carries the greatest load of housework. Yeah, and that's a value of hers, to contribute to the family through housework which is often not appreciated. And now perhaps she feels she has done so much that perhaps she's entitled to rest. So all these could be meanings attached to what she does, which is that act of saying, could you please empty the dishwasher? But when we call her a nag, it's become stripped of those meanings. It's like an attribute to her of something very unpleasant. And stripped of all those meanings, what she does makes her appear ugly, an ugly person. And I believe it conditions her, or can condition her, to feel guilt. Because she's characterized in that negative way. Like there's something wrong with her. Maybe her son's entrenched dependency, maybe his aggressive behavior, maybe they're on account of her female personality. Because, of course, only a woman can be a nag. A man cannot be a nag. So, yeah, those were my thoughts around that. I wonder, because, we had a brief chat and you pointed out how derogatory that word comes across to you. But you are a single parent, or have been a single parent, raising two daughters. You mentioned there weren't any men in the household.
No.
So I'm just wondering what your take on that is.
Well, it's not a word that I would use to my daughters as young women, and it's certainly something they've never used towards me. Priding yourself to ask the girls to contribute to things. If their response was, "You're being a nag," I don't know, I'd feel quite offended by that word.
Can you explain that offense that you would feel, that you would experience, what that's about?
Yeah, I suppose it is values, isn't it? My values and the way I communicate with my kids, who are 20, nearly to 28, and that's typical. My parcel's just arrived. And I'm here recording, which means I can't go and answer the door. 28 and 24, it's just not in our vocabulary. And if one of the girls referred to me as a nag, I'd certainly pull them up on that, correct them. It's not something we would say to each other.
What would be your motivation to pull them up on that?
My motivation is to answer the door and get my parcel right now, but I'm going to have to resist it. That's his intent to get me.
These are the vagaries of working online, aren't they?
Yeah, we're literally 9 minutes in. Had we started 10 minutes early, I would have got that. How annoying. God, I can't remember what the question was, Peter.
Let me see if I can remember. Yeah, what would be the motivation to pull them up on that and to sort of say, well, I'm not happy with you calling me a nag, or...
Yeah, it's an offensive word. It's derogatory towards a parent, guiding their kids to do household chores, a contribution, and all of that. It's somewhere they might as well almost say a ruder word,
Mm-hmm. So, and you said parent, but of course it only applies to a certain kind of parent. It only applies to a mother.
Yeah, I suppose it does. I'm not sure if I've heard men being called nags by their partners.
Mm.
It's not, it is perhaps something special for women.
Well, I was talking to a German colleague about it because this has been going around my head for the past week or two. And there is a German word for nag, and that's meckern. And she said, because meckern is also the sound a goat makes.
Okay.
And she said, well, but in German, meckern is universal. It can be male or female. And then I thought about that, and I thought, I'm not sure, because there is a word for a nag, which is Meckertante, which is naggy aunt, translates as naggy aunt. But there's no Mecker-Onkel, naggy uncle. There's no thing. So I thought, no, even in German, I'm quite sure it applies to women much more than to men.
Mm.
And I guess it becomes a stick with which women can be beaten in a subtle way.
Yeah, the imaginary stick. Yeah, and I'm thinking, what would I do then if someone called me a nag? Would I withdraw my request? Would it stop me from asking? Would that distance me from the person who called me a nag, for a while? Maybe I would go and sulk in another room. Maybe I would empty the dishwasher myself, maybe with a heavy heart. Maybe I wouldn't ask the kid to do the dishwasher again because he'll call me that name and I don't like that name, so I'll avoid that as well. So does that then put me into a position of avoidance? Yeah.
I would think so. So there are different options at this point, aren't there? There's an option to resist, or there is an option to comply. And if you comply, you may do some or all of those things. You may withdraw, you may avoid. It would discourage you from asking too often, or as often as you would wish to empty the dishwasher or do other things, carry responsibility within the household. And so it becomes an instrument of control, that characterization of a woman, if it is successful in discouraging her from making those requests.
Yeah. What would you do if someone called you a nag?
I think my response would be one of surprise, because I've never been called a nag in my life. And I think that's because I'm male, because I'm heterosexual male. I don't think heterosexual cisgender males get called nags. I wouldn't even feel in jeopardy of being called a nag, if you know what I mean.
I think the term nag, as we deconstruct this word, I think it is preferably used by men towards women. I think also that it is a word that is being described loosely for a woman who actually just talks. So, if you say, can you take the bins out, which is a one-off reasonable request, first time said, the response could quite easily be, you're a nag. Or I imagine a collective group of males saying, yeah, the wife nags about this, or the girlfriend nags about that. And actually, she's just basically talking to whatever,
Yeah. It's even in the jokes men make. When they sort of joke about the government being their female partners. That's a typical joke that men make to each other, as if they were controlled. And I don't know. it strikes me that that's one word, but there are many other words that characterize women in a negative way.
Yeah.
In medieval times, some women were dunked in a river in a cage for gossiping, when actually female propensity to talk about people and to talk about relationships is an important part of what goes on in society, isn't it? Because women are seen to have the responsibility for managing relationships, for nurturing relationships. You know, how many women make dinner arrangements between couples, and how many men make those dinner arrangements for a couple?
Yeah.
So women generally will take on much more often that kind of responsibility. So if we think of an NVR, I'm thinking of another case, and I mentioned that in my talk, where a man tells his wife not to tell others about the son's aggressive and self-destructive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And another stick to beat this woman with is gossip. You know, being loose with their tongues wagging. What he actually does is he isolates her. He isolates her from possible sources of support, particularly as this same man doesn't come to the NVR sessions because he doesn't believe in that psychological stuff. You know? Mm. So you can kind of see these are two different families, two different cases, but I'm just imagining they were one person. You can sort of see the cage tightening around this mother. You can feel it. And you know what you said about all the men saying that would be men more often. Could also be women calling women nags. But I'm just thinking, so when we have this mother and the son in one room, we don't actually just have the two of them in one room. And if in NVR we just treat it as the two being in one room, if we only work within that mother-son dyad, we're ignoring that context. We're ignoring all the other people who are in the room without being physically in the room. All the people who've given messages, maybe not just in this mother's life, maybe for hundreds and thousands of years, have given these messages and have characterized people in the same way. So it's little wonder that a young person uses that stick to beat their mother with, because it works.
Yeah.
Because it's available, because societal discourse gives license to characterize her in that way. You know, it's a dominant discourse in society. It sort of almost puts the stick in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a term that's been around forever and sadly will always be around, I think. Chaz and Dave wrote a song about it, didn't they? Rabbit, rabbit, rabbit.
What's rabbit, rabbit?
You know, Chaz and Dave had that song, didn't they, about women talking, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. I don't know what the relation to the animal is, because rabbits don't talk, but I'm not sure. I'm sure someone somewhere will let me know.
But those terms don't have to be around forever in our work in NVR.
No.
Because I think if we don't treat this as merely something between mother and son, but if we treat it as something about how women are characterized, and maybe we deconstruct these words, these ideas that are attached to these words in our work in NVR with parents, with mothers, then maybe those words lose some of their power, and perhaps this mother will feel more entitled in a good way to put her feet up and watch something on TV.
Yeah.
I'm watching Strictly. And I guess we could help her to find more effective ways of resisting her son's refusal to take on responsibility. In NVR, we would probably then move on to look at the refusal of some services because there's an unfair distribution of responsibility, and not expose her to being herself to being characterized in that negative way so much. But that would be a whole different matter. So we'd be aiming, I guess, to help her reduce those feelings of guilt that are triggered in her, which control her.
Really, that word really diminishes the sort of the parental authority, the parental presence in a woman. I'm just imagining being called it by a son when you've just politely asked him to help out, give his hand, empty the dishwasher, and he says, "Shut up, you nag."
Yeah.
How I'd feel about. Yeah. Yes, that's not a good word.
And I think it feeds into what we call parental erasure.
Yeah.
I don't matter as a parent. I don't matter as someone who contributes so much to the relationships in this family and to the running of this home, which is the material basis for the family and the emotional basis. I'm thinking of I'm thinking of a mother right now whose son behaves in ways that are very challenging to her. And she often makes pancakes because he loves to eat pancakes. And the pancakes have a particular meaning in this family. They have a warm, loving meaning. And she has used pancakes often as relational gestures, making pancakes. And recently, he has started making pancakes.
What, for her or for himself?
For the family.
For the family.
For the family. And for himself, of course. So I think that is very different, isn't it, from the designation of the mother as a nag. His response of making pancakes seems to me to indicate an appreciation of what she does for all of them.
Yeah, that's nice. We'll wind it up. Just thinking about to nag or not to nag. That is the question. There are so many words that are used towards women, to mothers, by their sons and partners, male partners. And I think that is just one of them. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's just one word that disempowers a woman doing her, taking on a role as a mother and a person that helps maintain the house. It's just one word. There are so many. But actually, it's about, as practitioners, how we can help parents, mothers, resist those harmful words and still maintain their parental authority in the home, parental presence. It's a lot.
And I think it is about NVR. We as an NVR community, not reducing our perspective to the dyad between parent and child, mother and son, mother and daughter, but to think of all the invisible people in the room. Voices have contributed to the typecasting and ultimately to the control through feelings of guilt of the parents we work with.
Nice one. Okay.
Good.
That's goodbye from me.
And from me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.